it's Dave again, and we're discussing assessment number 31789/02 for managed recruitment, selection and induction processes. So basically you need to be able to show evidence that you understand the requirements for the recruitment, selection and induction and how it's going to apply to the business, Coffeeville. You need to answer each of the questions. So I'll give you a bit of an idea of what's required. Don't forget this relates to the Coffeeville case study, which you have available, and you have the links available for that one in the additional resources section on the tab in your open space login page. So make sure you've read all those documents clearly and taken lots of notes. With the documentation that you have, calculate how many staff that you need to have working for the business and what's going to be involved. Basically, it's a matter of thinking that it's the opening day of the store. You've probably done a lot of advertising and marketing leading up to the opening of a new store. We would generally do that, so we would expect that we have a pretty high number of clientele visiting our store on the first day. With this in mind, think of all the issues that you might have with any new business. Okay? How experienced are the staff? What knowledge do they have of your products? What knowledge do they have of the systems? Even working together as a team, do they, look out for each other, or are they still working independently and not clicking and gelling? It's likely that on the first day of every new opening there's going to be problems, and generally you'll find businesses evolve even within the first week. But you just need to keep in mind, how many staff is it likely that I would need on this first day? So think about all the support they might need, the guidance, and how are you going to do this, and you need to give your recommendations. What you need to do with this is write an email to Emma and Rufus with your recommendations. So think about as well the experienced staff and inexperienced staff. How are you going to get them supported? How are you going to get them feeling comfortable operating at a fairly high capacity right from day one? So we need your recommendations. You might think about the current staff that are available in the existing operation and how they might be able to assist in the new business as well. So it's not just Emma and Rufus. Think about a company as a whole. With a new operation within a company structure, generally we would provide as much support and guidance as we could. So think about systems and procedures and policies and staffing that might already be in place that can be utilised effectively to make the first day of the new store very successful. Because keep in mind, with any new business, if you set a bad impression on day one, it's going to be very hard to maintain those clients and get them to come back. If customers get bad service, they don't want to return. It's pretty simple. So as well with business, the majority of your business will be from existing customers. That's the best thing in business. If you're trying to attract new customers, you have to win them over. It's a lot of work. They don't know about the business or the menus or the services that you have available. So that takes time. Every new customer is taking a lot more time than an existing customer that's walking in. Existing customers, you get to know them. They become friends. You greet them, you see them walking in the door, their coffee's already being made. Think about the coffee shop you go to on a regular basis, or stores that you go to where people might know you. That's how it should be. You make a personal experience for everybody. Present that email with your recommendations. It only needs to be 150 words. Part 2 is also an email. Position descriptions. It's a job description. What do the staff do? What are their key duties and responsibilities? It should be quite detailed, and always with your job descriptions, they should relate back to training and induction processes. So right from day one, staff know exactly what they need to do, and they can always refer back to their job descriptions. With the person specifications, we're talking about the sorts of skills and experience that staff would need to have to perform the job. So look at all the different roles that you're hoping to recruit for, and what details would you need? It's everything about the job basically, and these are also used in the recruitment process. So right from the start of advertising for a new employee, we know exactly what we're looking for. It's no good just saying, hey, we want a coffee shop worker, especially if it was a manager, especially if they were going to be experienced staff. So think about the information and why would you provide this information? What is the benefit? For number 3, we're talking about the job ad itself. So you've got the details of what the position is. It's a permanent full-time barista. You've got all the information of where the position's going to be located, and rates of pay, hours of work, and a little bit of an overview. If you're unsure of how to do this, on Fair Work Australia you can find a whole heap of templates that can help you with this. So use these sorts of resources in business. It's very, very effective. You don't have to start from scratch. Again, remember the type of staff. You want to be an employer of choice. You want the best staff possible. So how are you going to talk about Coffeeville? What will you say to make Coffeeville sound amazing, like a place that you really want to be working at? That's important. It is marketing for your business. It's branding for your business as well. So if an ad has typos or errors or poor grammar, well, that's going to be a reflection on your business as well. So keep this in mind when you write the job ad. But very importantly, you need to be tailoring this ad to the people that you are trying to attract for the job. There's nothing worse than getting thousands of applications when you have to wade through so many. It takes hours and hours to find only a couple of applicants that are suitable. If you do a very targeted ad, this will be much more effective, so keep that in mind. What you need to do as well is consider whether the details that you have been provided for this ad, are they accurate? So it might be worth just doing a review on the Fair Work website. Seek out the Modern Award for this particular position, and I'd be looking for all the position entitlements and the hourly rates of pay, and just make sure that that's all correct. You'd always do a double check before you post an ad. Don't trust the information you've been provided. It's easy to make typos. I know, look, in business we sometimes make an error, so this is cross-checking and cross-referencing. Double check that. If you notice an error, make a note of that as well in your assessment. You want to be thinking about legislative issues like with privacy and equal opportunity employment, and thinking about anti-discrimination legislation as well. We don't want to write anything that is going to get us in trouble with any applicants or potential applicants for the position. Okay, so number 4 is about developing a checklist. It's the checklist for the recruitment and selection process. So what you need to do is think every step that needs to happen in the recruitment and selection process. There are lots of learning resources that can help you with this. You can tailor this to your needs for Coffeeville. Keep it specific to Coffeeville. But I'd be writing down every single step in the process and then trying to work them into a logical sequence. The good thing about having a checklist, you can then create a flow chart so it can be used again and again and again. And this would be the first stage of developing a human resource management system or a client relations management system. You develop a base template, and then that is used every time. So it doesn't matter who uses the process, they all do the same thing. So this checklist is very, very important. And it only needs to be 75 to 100 words. So I'd be putting the key steps and a simple explanation, very brief, for what is involved in each of the steps. Okay, number 5, and you need to complete the table to summarise the legal requirements for recruitment and selection. Now you've been given a series of acts: racial discrimination, sexual discrimination, disability discrimination, affirmative action, Equal Employment Opportunity for Women Act of 1986. Also Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commissions Act and the Privacy Act. These are all very, very critical. And you have links to these in your learning resources, but you'll need to summarise how these relate to the recruitment and selection policies for Coffeeville, and why they're very, very important. There's some key issues with each of these. I can't give you the answers, obviously, but do some reading. This safeguards you from any potential claims against your business with relation to any of the issues explained in these acts. The final part, number 6, is to write a letter of offer for your new store manager. And actually the template that is provided in the Word document is taken directly from Fair Work Australia. And again, we have a lot of templates on this website, and it's recommended that you use these templates. It's basically a matter of just copy and paste And where you see a red section, that is simply insert the details that are applicable in that section. So it's highlighted already for you the information you need to have. The blue sections, do not remove those, okay, because they relate to specific clauses or for specific issues, like where it says Part 2 probation. It provides a little explanation, because this letter of offer will go to one of your new employees, and in this case it's going to be for the store manager. Now they need to have this information. They need to have it available when they're provided the letter of offer, because if they have any questions, they know where to go to. Like for instance, in that probation section, it lists that they can contact the Fair Work info line, and it provides the phone number. So most people, when they receive a letter of offer, they're going to check through and check for that there's no errors, and they want to be very clear that it's conforming with the law. Number 7, what information would you give to Coffeeville store managers about how they should ensure new employees are appropriately onboarded? When we talk about onboarding, it's basically getting them into work for the business. So everything we need to do to get them started with the company. So think of all the issues that you'll have to go through. You know, what are the stages in the process of the recruitment and selection? And more importantly, bringing them into the company. What will you do from day one? So think about how they're going to get to know all the policies and procedures and the staff, getting used to the business, even looking around the business. You need to consider all the issues with relation to work health and safety and access, simple things like facilities for staff and change rooms. What's available? How are you going to provide them with this information? What will you do? So it's 125 to 150 words with your recommendations for what you're going to do. Think about the training and inductions and all those processes you need to go through so the store manager is ready for action. Number 8, you need to give feedback on the induction process. So at this stage, it's highlighted here that the managers are not having a formal chat with staff on a fortnightly basis, as is required. So feedback's been received from the managers that it's very intensive and they don't have time to chat with new employees. So what changes may be required to induction? Now, if it's part of the process that we're supposed to have this conversation with the new staff, it's very, very important that the conversation takes place. But like we said, it's very time consuming. You might have a number of new staff, and as a store manager, you have a big focus. You're thinking about finances and running the business, ordering stock and talking with suppliers and vendors and stakeholders, managing recruitment and all these other processes. So actually getting onto the floor to chat to the staff might be a very difficult process. You should endeavour to do it though. As a good manager, you will be one-on-one with your staff every chance you get. Listen to their problems and help them out as much as you can. It's that idea of what we call an open door policy. Be there for your staff. So if it's time consuming for managers to do this every 2 weeks, do you have better alternatives? Number 10, it's talking about appropriate methods for communication and making sure that employees are kept updated on changes to any policies and procedures and legislation. So this is really important with any business, that staff are aware of what they need to do, and the policies and procedures set this out. Particularly when it comes to law, as a manager, you need to let your staff know what's going on. The idea of work health and safety, this changes a lot. It's evolving all of the time. So if there's safety procedures they should be following and you haven't informed your staff, well, you could be held liable as a manager under your duty of care. If you haven't updated your staff, if you haven't trained your staff and advised your staff and they have an accident, well, you could be held liable personally, not the company. The company in addition can be held liable, and in that regard, if this is like the state work health and safety authorities, if they take you to court and you're fined, well, that might be a situation where as a manager you may get fired from your job. It could be gross negligence. In addition to that, you may have your staff member, they could take you into a civil prosecution as well. So be very, very clear with the law. You need to get it right. So you need to be updating your staff all the time. So how will you get information to staff? When will you provide the information? How will you provide the information? And why will you give it in different ways? Okay, so think about how you're going to get the information to staff, and I'd provide recommendations for the positives and negatives of all of those. Number 11 is the processes to ensure applicants are notified within specified timeframes on selection outcomes, and written notifications and contracts are issued. It's very important in the selection process that if staff have been offered jobs, that they're notified quickly and with the right information. Okay, if you go for a job interview and you've been offered a job and you don't hear from the employer, it's not going to be a good thing. You're not going to feel very positive about the future with that company. But a lot of companies get this recruitment process very, very wrong. I'm not sure if you've ever applied for a job and never heard back from the company. Now, this is a different protocol for all companies, and there's no particular law requiring a company to notify you whether your application has even been received. But if you've been a successful applicant, you need to act fast, because there's a lot of competition in the job market, and good staff are always being claimed and poached by those other employers of choice. So there's competition for your staff. So what will you do? How quickly will you respond to let staff know they're successful applicants? There may be interviews coming. How will you notify them? When will you notify them? What are the time frames? Number 12, what methods of feedback could be implemented to establish the effectiveness of the induction? What you need to do here is to make sure that the induction process has been successful from the management and staff perspective. So what documentation will you use to gather information? How can you gather information that is just verbal? If you do talk to managers and inductees, new staff members, how will you record the information? How will you share that information? It's really important from a quality assurance perspective that you can review information like this, because it helps you make changes to your processes and procedures. If it's going well, great, we want to know that. If it's not, and the staff feel that they haven't been provided the right amount of information, we need to make those improvements. So think of all the ways you can get that information, gather the information, and record the information. Think about modern technology as well. Number 13, in your own words, explain the importance of addressing terms and conditions of employment. So think about here, very, very importantly, what does Fair Work Australia and the Fair Work Act say about the information you need to provide to employees? Refer to their websites and make sure that you satisfy the national employment standards as well. This is something that a lot of employers still aren't doing, and it's been around for a long time. So think about the national employment standards and what information you need to provide your staff and how you need to go through this recruitment induction process. Psychometric testing is question 14, and the benefits of this kind of testing and skills testing. Why would you do it? It's all about providing an analysis of the way your staff think and how do they behave and how they will work as team members or individuals within your company. Skills testing is checking their competency in certain jobs. So a barista, what sort of skills would you test for a barista? And think about why you do that. It's a very, very important part of the recruitment process. Many of the bigger companies, you'll have to go through psychometric testing, and it can be quite intimidating, but there are very specific benefits. So do a bit of research into that. Number 15 talks about the methods for recruiting and selecting employees. You need to explain the process for one method which could be used when recruiting for vacancies. So try and do some research on the various options that are there and explain in detail one of those processes. And I would be explaining the one that you think is going to be most effective. Explain why, but again, relate it back to Coffeeville. So think about all the methods, all the industry publications you might be able to use, or networking. Try and find out information on these sites and whether you can post and how much it costs, etc., etc. It can be quite an expensive and time-consuming process, and it needs to be tailored to find the best staff, because remember, you need to come across like an employer of choice. Number 16, explain when it may be useful to use an assessment centre. So an assessment centre, that might be a government department, Centrelink for instance, and it could also be private recruitment companies. Now this again can be a very, very, very expensive process. Generally it works on a basis that the company won't charge you until the employee has stayed successfully with your business for a certain period of time, and then generally there'll be a fee that relates to the annual salary, and it could be quite high. 15 to 30% is not unheard of, sometimes more. So rather than a flat fee, it's most likely based on the annual salary of the employee. So do some research into the various methods or the various companies that you can use to recruit staff. If you look up recruiters online, the list is really huge. And another great website is the Australian Human Resource Institute, or ARI, and they provide a listing of all the recruiters that are members of their organisation, and I'd recommend that website for you, definitely. Okay, so hopefully that gives you enough information to go through and complete the assessments. As always, I'm available to answer questions. Direct message me via your online portal in OpenSpace, and I wish you good luck.